Los Angeles International Airport was chaotic as usual. Announcements blared, children cried, passengers scrolled listlessly on their phones, and exhausted people trudged along with their luggage. Omar Qasim had just disembarked from a 5-hour flight from Dallas. His body was stiff from sitting, but he was relieved to be back in California. He wasn't the type to complain. At 38, he had a good life. As the co-founder of a fast-growing cybersecurity tech company, Omar was a household name. But here, amid the sea of people, he was just another passenger, waiting for his luggage. At least, that's what he thought. He noticed the police presence as soon as he entered the baggage claim area. Officer Grant Kearney stood near the entrance, his arms crossed over his chest, his gaze trained on him as if he were a suspect. A white man, late 40s, wearing a standard TSA uniform. Nothing unusual except the way he stared, a predatory gaze, patiently waiting for something. Omar was no stranger to this kind of stare. A wordless scrutiny. A silent condemnation. He took a deep breath, checked his phone, and told himself to let it go. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. But as he approached the baggage claim, his eyes drifted to Kearney. He was still there, still looking at him, still ignoring the dozens of other people around him, the middle-aged man with the wrinkled suit, the absent-minded young man with the open backpack, the man in shorts muttering into his AirPods. He was the only one being stared at. A simmering irritation rose in Omar's chest. He was used to being scrutinized. He knew what it felt like to slow down, to keep from making any movements that might be considered suspicious. But today, his patience was gone. And then, Kearney started moving, straight toward him. Omar's hand tightened. Omari's fingers tightened around the handle of his carry-on bag as the officer stopped just a few feet away. Too close to make conversation. "Can I see your ID?" Kenny asked, his tone short and commanding. Omari blinked, frowning slightly. "Excuse me?" Kenny narrowed his eyes, the sharpness of his gaze making the space seem even more cramped. "I need to see your ID." "Why?" "You've been standing here for a while," Kenny said, his eyes never leaving Omari, as if his every move was suspicious. Omari let out a short laugh, a mixture of disbelief and irritation. "Like everyone else. We're waiting for our bags." Kenny's expression didn't change. "Just show me your ID." "It's not a request, it's an option." Omari stood still, her mind racing with possibilities. He could do the easy thing, pull out his identification, hand it to Kenny, let him exert his authority for no apparent reason. Or he could do what he should have done, fight this nonsense. Omari slipped his phone into his pocket, his eyes never leaving Kenny. "Is there any particular reason you asked me to do this and not someone else?" Kenny clenched his jaw, his breath coming in short gasps. "You fit the description of someone we're looking for." So there it was. Omari crossed his arms over his chest. "What's that description?" The silence stretched. A tense moment hung between them. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Kenny's voice was low, a warning. "The hard way. Because asking questions is resistance, right?" Omari wasn't a fool. He knew this could escalate quickly. Push too hard, and things could get ugly. Keep quiet, and Kenny will leave, but then it could happen to someone else, and someone else. The real question is, how far is Kenny willing to go? But before Omari could make a decision, someone else did it for him. A voice rang out, sharp and decisive. "Excuse me, officer. Is there a problem here?" Omari turned. A woman in a dark blue jacket stood a few feet away, her phone raised. In that instant, everything changed. Kenny hesitated, his body stiffening. His eyes flicked to the woman with the phone, calculating. Omari recognized her instantly. Miriam Cho. Award-winning investigative reporter. And just like that, the tables were turned. Miriam was the last person any law enforcement officer wanted on tape. She didn't put down the phone. I just want to make sure things are handled fairly here. Her voice was calm, but there was an unwavering determination in it. Kearney exhaled sharply, as if he'd just shoot an annoying fly from his space. He turned back to Omari, exasperation evident on his face. Sir, I'll ask you one last time. Show me your ID. But Omari didn't flinch. You still haven't told me why. He kept his tone even. And if I do fit a description, you'll have no problem explaining what that is. The atmosphere in the baggage claim area suddenly changed. The background noise of the baggage conveyor belt, rolling suitcases, and sporadic conversations began to fade under the weight of the growing silence. The other passengers began to take notice. A middle-aged black man in a navy hoodie. A young woman with bright eyes, red headphones around her neck. A white couple standing near the baggage carousel. They were all watching. A few discreetly pulled out their phones. Kearney felt the pressure. His fingers twitched at his waist, near the radio. He had two options, back off or escalate. But his ego wouldn't let him choose the former. He reached out and grabbed Omari's wrist. Okay, turn around. But Omari had already taken a step back, her hand raised slightly, not aggressively, but clearly enough. What are you trying to arrest me for? It was Miriam's voice again, clearer and sharper than before. Officer, I think you should reconsider. She tilted her head, her eyes never leaving the phone screen. There are about 6 cameras on you right now. Kearney whirled toward her, his face changing from authority to obvious irritation. Ma'am, this is a law enforcement matter. Stay away. Miriam didn't blink. It became a public matter the moment you picked him out for no reason. More voices were joining in now. Not loud, but loud enough to make it clear, this wasn't going to be swept under the rug. A woman nearby spoke up. Yeah, why was he the only one being questioned? I saw the whole thing. The air was thick, as if the entire airport was holding its breath, waiting for the officer's next move. That I saw it all. A young man muttered, his voice almost caught in his throat. He just stood there. Kearney's face was tense, a scowl flickering across his face. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but not from the heat. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Usually when he took control, people complied. They bowed, answered his questions, showed their papers. Made it easier for themselves. But not today. Omari saw it in his eyes, the realization sinking in. Kearney had miscalculated. Something had changed. The crowd was no longer silent. The air was no longer one of simple obedience. It was thick with suspicion, with simmering anger. And then, just as the tension was on the brink, a new voice rang out. Officer Kearney of the company. An authoritative voice rang out from behind. Kearney turned, and so did Omari. A man in a gray jacket strode toward them, his gait confident and purposeful. His airport security badge swayed lightly against his chest. Rodney Finch. The airport security director. A name Omari recognized, though they had never met in person. The air seemed to stand still for a beat. Finch glanced at Kearney, his posture was as rigid as a stone statue, his jaw clenched. Then his gaze drifted to Omari, still, determined but unprovoked. And then Finch looked at the crowd gathered nearby. Phones raised, cameras still recording every second of this moment. It took only a split second for Finch to understand the situation. A sharp look swept over Kearney. It was clear what was really going on here. And just like that, the tide began to turn. The tension crackled in the air, thick enough to take your breath away. Officer Kearney's posture stiffened. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, as if feeling the ground beneath him shake. His jaw tightened, a simmering frustration rising beneath his skin. He knew Finch had the upper hand in this situation, but backing down was not an easy option. Omari, on the other hand, remained still. His heart was steady, unwavering. He would not gloat, would not smirk, because this was not over. Not yet. Finch paused for a second, then asked, his voice calm but sharp. Kearney, I asked a question. What's the point? Hesitant. Kearney knew what this looked like. The whole world was watching this moment. But giving up? No. This individual acted suspiciously, he said, his tone strained as if clinging to a thin thread of reason. He lingered near the baggage claim area, and when asked to identify himself, he refused to comply. Omari exhaled, a long, slow breath. All eyes were on Finch. His decision would determine what happened next. In the air, amid the pounding heartbeats, something shifted. I was standing here like everyone else, just waiting for my bag. But the atmosphere around me was different. Heavy. Tensed. Full of scrutiny. And then, Finch's expression darkened. He'd worked airport security long enough to know when things were bad. And this time, it was really bad. Finch turned to Omari, his tone calm but not without tension. Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience. Are you waiting for your checked baggage? Omari nodded, just once. Do you have a baggage tag? Without a word, Omari pulled out his phone, scrolled to the digital copy of his baggage receipt. He held it up. Finch glanced at the screen, then turned to Kearney. Did you request this? His voice was sharper, more dangerous than before. Kearney's nostrils flared. I require identification. Finch's gaze hardened. Did you ask for a baggage claim? Silence. Because they both knew the truth. Finch exhaled heavily and turned back to Omari. You're free to collect your bags, sir. I appreciate your patience. Omari could have stopped there, simply taken his bags and left. But something in him refused. A simmering resentment, no longer concealable. This keeps happening, he said, his voice no longer harsh but heavy, a weariness that had run deep. And the worst part? People like him never think about it. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some bowed, some stared, some blinked in confusion. Finch nodded slowly. I understand your frustration. Omari smiled faintly, his eyes boring into Finch. No, you don't. But you can try to be quiet. Kearney's face flushed, his hands clenched, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. Omari didn't need an apology. Not from him. He glanced at Miriam, who was still holding the camera phone. You got everything you need? She nodded, her eyes quiet but knowing. Kearney could feel the weight of the consequences now. The public was watching him. And in this day and age, that was more important than a badge. Finch exhaled, choosing his words carefully. I'll review the footage. Officer Kearney, we'll talk later. Omari didn't gloat, because he didn't have to. Kearney dung kung du nu mot tam van. Kuan mat on ta toi di mot chut so voi truok, tuc john, nan ra, hok ko the la ca hai. En hung ju du kong kon quan trong nua. On ta de mat kim so tin hin, va on ta beat ju du. En hung buong bo kong fi la ban chat qua on ta. Ban dang pham sai lam, kenny lam bam trong hoi tho, how nu kong du lon de Finch na thay. Bu cam qua Finch van kong thay doi. Loi due not toi thay la motsi quan su dung fu hu qua min de que roi ai du chi vi ho dang lam song vi qua min. Mot vi nuoi trong dam dong gat dao dong tin. Mot nuoi fu nu gon du ti tam du gi du voi ban qua koi, lak dao. Nuoi kok ti buong mot tiang tram fan doi. Omari de tung thay en hung can nu the nai truok day, en hung chua bao goo phia ben nai qua no. Thong thuong, he thong se bao vi chin no. Kong phi hom ne. Miriam buk toi, ha dien thoi soang mot chut en hung van jung gwin banghim. Si quan Kearney, on ko loi twen bo now muon duare kong. De ghi lai. Kearney que fat dao vi fire ko I. Koan kok du, ko I ko the tat on tama hiu qua kung kong kok mei. Hai bon te Kearney nam chat lai ton nam dam. Ming on tamo ra, roy kep lai. Ham on ta seat lai, and hung on ta ko the noigi. Bat cu du gi fat ra tu ming on I du ko the, va si, duok su dung de chong lai on ta. Finch kong de su im lang kio dai lao. Kearney, on by dui vik roy. Bout sao voi van fong qua toi sao sie lam vik. Omari ko the thay no, catch malong kio han va su dao tau qua Kearney dang dao tran ben trong on ta. Ban nang ju gwin kim sot doi dao voi su that lan lung rang on ta kong kon gi nua. Trong motga, Omari tu hoi lu Kearney ko fan kang kong, dao sao got chan va lam chomwa Thursday tiro nin toi te han. En hung on ta de kong. Kearney tu lui lai. Mot sai nin koi kung qua on ta lut qua Omari, mot tia on john lo len trong mat. Omari jung gwin on mat, kong tuc john, kong chien tang, chi la su tsong nan. Koan kok nai sem on Kearney lao han so voi Omari. Kong noi them loi now, Kearney que di va buk ra koi hien truong. Nai kai on ta roi di, nang luong trong kong john dik chien mot lan nua. I du tho ra hoi tho ma ho danin tu lao. Mot nuoi dan ong macau somi kukoi kuk kich trong hoi tho qua min, lak dao. Mot nuoi fu nu macau koak de lam bam, dung luke. Va nu the, dam dong bat dao tan ra. Omari zoe vi, tho ra tu. Tsang tang de bop chat ko the on sut muoi fut qua, koi kung kung bat dao tan bien. Miriam tien lai gon han. Ban on chu. Omari gat dao, cham rai, met moi. You. Ban de su ly tot du. Toi kong nen fi su ly no chut now. Moi Miriam mim lai, en hung ko I kong fan doi. Finch hang jong. Ong kasim, mot lan nua, toi ton that xin loi. Nu ban muon nop don q nai, toi rat vui long jup du. Omari lak dao. Kong kan. Finch chop mat, ngak nin. Kong. Jong Omari ben tin han bao geo het. Junai se duok su ly theo mot catch kok. Finch kong hoi on ta ko ygi. On ta kong kan. V the gioi de theo doi roy. Kai Omari buk ra koi qua san bei, video de truck twen. Miriam kong lang fi motga now. Trong vong vi fut, don fim de duok tai len, kat gep va chia se tren yun en tang. Mot video ko tu de, fan beat chung tok tai la, si quan que roy nuoi dan ong vio toi. Omari how nu kong ko thoi john de tho truok kai dien tho I qua on I bat dao rung. Dao tien la tin nan tu doi tok kin don qua on I, sinai dang no tung roy, ban oi. Saudula mot kuok goi, mot na bao tu mot hang tin lon muon mot twen bo. Omari tho dai. On I kong ko ku hoch cho vik nai. On I chi muon vi na. En hung bai geo, junai de lon han chin on I. Miriam di ben kan on I kai ho hung vi fire kuvuk don kok. Clip de dat 50. 000 lut zem roy, ko inoa, kim tra dien tho I. Cho no mot vi geo nua, no se dat sao con so. Omari dua te len mat, hoi tho sao han. Kuok chien nai chi moi bat dao. The police department issued a statement within the hour, calling the incident deeply troubling. And promising a full internal review. But that wasn't enough to stem the outrage. Reporters began digging into Kearney's past. The next morning, someone found 2 previous complaints against him. For sheer force. Both had been swept under the rug. Now they were back in the light. Omari's phone kept ringing. Some wanted interviews, others wanted lawsuits. Civil rights groups drafted statements. And then came the real fallout. By midday, Officer Grant Kearney had been suspended, pending an investigation. Omari stared at the headline on the screen. Relieved? Satisfied? No, not really. Because he knew what was coming next. The police union would fight for Kearney. Some news stations would try to spin it. People online would argue about what Omari should have done differently. And Kearney might end up in a different department. A few towns over. And it would be the same. Miriam sat across from him at the airport cafeteria, watching him carefully. Are you okay? Omari tapped his phone on the table, staring at the screen. This changes everything. Miriam raised an eyebrow. The way Omari met her eyes. Because now I have to decide what to do next. The power wasn't just in the video. It was in the choice. And this time he wasn't going to let it slip away. Omari sat in his car, staring at his phone screen. The news had spread faster than he'd expected. His name was everywhere now. His face, too. But this wasn't about him. Not really. He scrolled through the messages flooding his inbox. Some were from old college friends. Some were strangers thanking him. Sharing their own stories. This happened to me last year at an airport in Phoenix. I filed a complaint, but nothing came of it. My brother went through the same thing. But he was unlucky because they arrested him for resisting. Thank you for standing your ground. We see this all too often. Omari let out a sigh. He had options. He could do an interview. Go on a podcast. Maybe even take legal action. But what would that change? He glanced out the window. Watching the traffic move along Century Avenue. The relentless rhythm of a city that never stops. Miriam's voice still echoed in his mind. You handled it well. But had he? Or had he just survived? His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then he began typing. I don't want to fight today. I'm just trying to get home. But that's what moments like these are all about. They remind you that keeping quiet won't stop it from happening again. This isn't the first time. And it won't be the last. But maybe, just maybe. If we keep the cameras rolling. Keep the pressure on. And keep demanding change. One day, he'll hit the bullseye. And just like that, the story is no longer just yours. It belongs to everyone watching. Because awareness is no longer enough. It's time to take responsibility. This happens more than we think. And often those on the receiving end don't have the platform to fight back. If you believe in holding those in power accountable, keep the conversation going. Keep speaking up. Keep demanding better. And if you've ever been in a situation like this, share your story. Because the more we shine a light on injustice, the harder it is to ignore.